Welcome to the Unpacking It podcast with Bryce Johnson. It's a show that unpacks sports, faith, and life with intriguing guests from the sports and entertainment world. Enjoy inspiring conversations and thought-provoking interviews. You'll hear stories from people that will inspire, challenge, and encourage you. Now, from the Unpacking It studios in Charlotte, North Carolina, uniting sports fans everywhere, here is Bryce Johnson.
Welcome to the Unpacking It podcast, Charlotte edition. I'm Bryce Johnson. Hope you're doing great today. We are excited to welcome on Al Wallace, former Carolina Panther defensive end. Before we bring him on, let me ask you this. Do you need health insurance? Get quotes for individual health insurance plans at healthmarketgenius.com. That's healthmarketgenius.com. Know your options. Al has been on this show before and always love catching up with him. And he played defensive end during that 2003 Super Bowl team. And so I'm a big Al Wallace fan. And so we talk a little bit about his playing career. We talk about kind of what God's doing in his life, family. He's got a 1-year-old and a total of 5 kids. And then he's got a family business with his wife. So he's going to share about that. We get his thoughts on all of the Panthers topics going on, so much going on with Carolina this offseason. And so excited to talk to him. He played 10 years in the NFL for the Eagles, Bears, Bills, Dolphins, and then Panthers, what was really where he caught on. And so he plays college football at Maryland, and he's a husband and a father. Before we jump in, let me encourage you to check out our website, unpackingit.com, and be sure to subscribe to the weekday email devotional. We call it Unpack This, and you can subscribe for free and get the encouraging word each weekday about sports, faith, and life. And you can subscribe on unpackingit.com. Well, right now, let's jump right in with Al Wallace.
Intriguing guests and inspiring conversations. This is Unpacking It with Bryce Johnson.
Al, thanks so much for joining us again on Unpacking It. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm just grateful for you to have me back on. I love spending time with you the last time. Looking forward to this session here.
Absolutely. Well, glad to have you on. And of course, last year we did an event together, the Super Saturday Man Breakfast, which was awesome. And so glad to catch up with you today. And I know you've had a lot going on family-wise and work-wise, and so want to hear all about that as well. But we'll start with the Panthers because it's just been such a wild offseason, and it seems like the conversation has been the same during the offseason, but it's taken so many twists and turns, and it depends on the latest reports that are out. And so today, it's kind of the signs are pointing to Cam returning as the starter. And so I guess first off, do you buy that kind of latest rumor, latest comments, and does it make sense?
Yeah, I'll see it when I see him back in the uniform. I think this time of year with the combine going on, the draft quickly approaching, if you're the Carolina Panthers, I think the smart thing is to say you want him, you value him, because if you don't, you diminish his trade value if that's something you're looking forward to doing down the road here. So I think the Carolina Panthers, their front office personnel, they're saying the right things, that they want to bring Cam back. That's going to open the door for more trade partners if they don't. So I think they're doing the right thing. I'll see it when I believe it. I want to see number one back in the Carolina Panthers jersey. I think he is the best option at quarterback for this team, at least for next year.
Well, so I would kind of agree with that he'd be the best option if healthy, but does it make sense with the plan that has kind of already been revealed? Because I look at, Greg Olsen leaving and Luke Kuechly retiring, and so it seems like, the team's going young, and then to bring in a guy who's been the face or bring him back and has been so much of the focal point, does that make sense with everything that's changing and a lot of the veterans that are leaving?
Yeah, it doesn't make sense if you're Cam Newton. I think if you're Cam, and you're looking at winning football games and you want to prove that you're still a valuable quarterback in this league, you have to do that by winning. And I don't think this team, the roster as it stands today, is set up to win very many football games. So if you're Cam, I don't think it plays in your favor. If you're Matt Rule and you're the Carolina Panthers, I mean, name me 5 other quarterbacks that you can go out there. And I think it's a loaded free agency coming up as far as the quarterback pool. And then in the draft, there's a lot of intriguing quarterbacks that are out there. I still don't think any of those guys, and I think we're going to keep saying this until proven otherwise, when he's healthy, he's the best option for this team to win. But if I'm looking at it as an individual, as Cam Newton, I want out of here like the rest of the guys because I don't want to be a part of a rebuild when I'm getting up there in age and 30 years old and trying to win championships. You don't want to go through those 2 years, 2 or 3 lean years here that I believe the Panthers are going to have.
You know, that's a good point because I'm actually surprised that he hasn't come out and said, hey, please trade me. Please, I got to start fresh somewhere else, considering the moves that we've already seen the Panthers make. So that's, he's kind of been, hey, I'm coming back, and that's been his kind of stance, which I think in some ways is surprising. Are you surprised by that?
I am, because I think we all have egos, and I think Cam Newton has an ego, and for this team to have not verbally committed to him, just doesn't feel right. I think my ego would get in the way, and it would say, hey, if you don't want me, I'm going to go out and I'm going to prove that I can still win football games. I can still play at an MVP caliber level, and I'm going to prove you wrong. So I can't believe he hasn't done that. Maybe I don't know Cam as well as maybe any of us thought we did.
Yeah.
But I think he loves the city. He loves Charlotte, the things he does in this community. He's attached. He's grown up here as a Carolina Panther. He's got his start here. He won an MVP. So I think he really has an affinity for this organization in this town.
Which is cool. And it's kind of in some ways surprising that fans have been so eager or willing to move on from him. Because of that connection that he's had with the city for so long and all the success that he has had. We've kind of forgotten it because the last 2 years with injuries. But man, it's fascinating, and I think we'll hear many more stories between now and when guys actually go out there with pads on. And so in kind of this season of the off season and all that does go on this time of year, when you were playing, do any, I don't know, stories come to mind? Just as what is your perspective as far as how often did you hear rumors or what was being said publicly you knew was way different than reality, just because you were in the locker room, you knew what was going on? What's just kind of your overall take on, we'll grab any nugget of rumor and run with it this time of year. But I got to think behind the scenes, people are laughing at kind of what people run with. Yeah,
it only takes a small seed to kind of get that rumor growing, and it just goes from ear to ear and out of the mouths, and it changes so quickly. I think the most important thing to understand about the off season, it is the biggest time of hope for all fans. We all hope that our teams are going to get better. We're all hopeful that we're going to get that top-tier free agent and the highest pick in the draft, and the guy's going to come in and change our trajectory. So this is a time of hope. So the rumors are just waiting. It's just a small flame will turn into an inferno. So I think for me, that's the thing I take away from the off season. But I've been a part of locker rooms where you hear things about a guy maybe coming in, and as a player, if it's a guy in your position. So for me, a defensive end, and the rumors are they're going to go after this big free agent signing. I mean, it makes you worry a little bit about your job security. I was an undrafted free agent in my career, 10 years, and was never a full-time starter. So I think from year to year, I always approached it with, making a roster, and that's the way I did it. I did not feel comfortable or think anything was guaranteed, not one single season in the NFL. So for me, you look at this time, the NFL renews itself with the draft and the combine coming up here this weekend, and you got to compete. So I was back in the gym training, getting myself ready for that battle that I knew a younger, probably cheaper, more highly touted guy was going to come in and try to uproot what I had built. So that's the way I approach the offseason and the draft and each upcoming year.
Wow. No, that's interesting and a unique perspective. And so when you were in those situations, how transparent, were the positional coach, the D coordinator, the head coach, the GM, as far as if they said, hey, we're bringing you back, we want you back? Did they end up living up to that, or were there times where they said one thing and then before you knew it, I guess I'm out of a spot this year?
Yeah, it's it's a tough time, and I think I only have one experience. I came here via trade from the Miami Dolphins in 2002 and got a great opportunity with John Fox and Jack Del Rio and the guys. Gave me a real opportunity to come improve myself. I was on a 2-year deal, so my contract expired the second the Super Bowl ended. And I remember for the first time in my career feeling wanted because on the plane back from Houston to Charlotte, both Marty Herney and John Fox approached me on the airplane and said, hey, we're going to get a deal done. We got to have you back. I was a special teams contributor. I was a backup to Mike Rucker and the great Julius Peppers, and I was productive in those first 2 years under John Fox. And they thought they could, get a deal in play that would bring me back. And that kind of love, I probably took less money to come back here, not much less, but less money to come back here because of my sense of loyalty and because of that transparency that I saw from Marty Herney, who I still have a great relationship with today, John Fox, that said, hey, we want you. We value what you bring to this team. I knew I wasn't elite like Peppers and Rucker. I wasn't a superstar, but I was a hard worker. I think they appreciated that, and they knew that that team was built on chemistry, not so much an overwhelming number of talented players. We did have Steve Smith and Peppers. I keep saying Peppers. Oh, yeah. But they valued that hard work and that effort, and they wanted to keep that team together, as long as they possibly could. And I did re-sign in free agency before free agency hit and came back here to play with the Carolina Panthers my last 3 seasons in the NFL.
I love that. No, that's awesome. And of course, that was the Super Bowl team, and you were right there rotating in at D end and a key role on that team, which was awesome. So, I love that story. And are you surprised, I guess, when it's just a tough thing when you talk about people's money and you understand the loyalty to a team, you find the chemistry, you want to stick around, you'll take less, because some may say, hey, Al, you could have gone somewhere else and maybe been a starter, whereas here you knew you were going to be the backup. You knew you were the backup to Rucker and Peppers. They had proven themselves, and so you passed that up. I don't know, I'm just curious kind of that mindset and even comparing it to other guys, but what you ultimately kind of landed on and what you valued the most.
Yeah, I value that loyalty, and I value the friendships in the locker room, in the city of Charlotte, and the opportunity that I was given here. And I wanted to pay that forward, or repay Marty and John Fox for letting me come in, not looking at that free agent tag that we carry throughout our careers, and put me on the field and said, hey, earn it by merit and not by draft status. And so many times in the NFL, if you're drafted a first rounder and you're a first rounder throughout your career, you get an overwhelming number of opportunities, whether you're productive or not. So this team had a different approach, and this coaching staff had a different approach, and I value that. And it also goes back to my journey in the NFL, being in NFL, being out. Before I was here with the Carolina Panthers, was working at a high school as an assistant principal, and got a call from the Dolphins, who was my hometown team down in Florida, and said, hey, we're going to give you another shot, go through their OTAs, get an opportunity to go to training camp, and got traded to the Panthers the week before training camp started. Drove from Miami, Florida to Spartanburg, South Carolina. So my journey wasn't an easy one. I had a young family, a wife and a really young daughter. I think she was maybe 3 or 4 months old, maybe a year old at the time. And I decided I wasn't going to bounce around in the NFL. I found a place that loved me. I loved where I was, and I was going to give it my last shot here and reward the team that really stuck their neck out for me and gave me an opportunity to play.
Man, I love it. Love reminiscing about that Panthers era. And to your point, just the type of guys like Jake Delhomme and Ricky Prohl and even, even Steve Smith, you mentioned he's a star, but he didn't necessarily come in as this highly touted guy. I mean, he was a punt returner that became this star wide receiver. So that's what made that team so special. Guys were hungry, and the chemistry that you talk about. So, so I always go back. Those are the glory days for me as a fan as well. And so along those lines, where we kind of look at where the Panthers are at right now, and I would say that they're far from having that type of chemistry just because, hey, it seems like kind of a rebuild, a retool, whatever it ends up being. How do you view the kind of the current state of this team, all the change that has been taking place? And if you were in charge, what kind of plan would you put in place? How do you see kind of things improving and moving forward?
Yeah, it's I think it's the first time since I arrived here in 2002 that I have a feeling of uncertainty about what product I'm going to see on the football this year. And I know a lot of things, openings and pieces to the puzzle have to be put in place here with the roster. You have a new coaching staff, you get new front office personnel. Everything is changing. All the names and the faces and the leadership on that field has changed. It started with Thomas Davis, and you see, Ryan Khalil, all those guys left, and now Olsen and Kuechly. I mean, there are really two, I think, nationally known commodities on this team, and it's Cam Newton, and we're still up in the air not knowing where he's going to be. And then you have Christian McCaffrey, both of those guys on the offensive side. So as a defender, a guy who was a part of establishing a baseline for what Carolina Panthers defense would become in 2002 and having it carried out, I feel like it left out of the door with Luke Kuechly and Thomas Davis. Now that those two guys are gone, I'm not saying they don't have good players. KK Short and, Shaq Thompson, those guys are going to have to step up. But it is scary not having those big names, those personalities, that leadership on this football team, along with new coaching, full staff. It makes it very scary as a Carolina Panthers fan. I don't know what I'm going to see come September.
I know there's an element of excitement because it is new. There's going to be fresh players and, of course, new coaches and all that. But, yeah, I'm with you. I'm worried and scared and wondering, how long of a rebuild will it be? But we've seen in the NFL how quickly you can turn things around. So I'm definitely hopeful for that. And so in speaking about the Matt Rule hire, a lot of people have been talking about him. I want to take it a little bit deeper. When you look at the staff and just, you've been around this franchise, you're a former player. For me, I'm disappointed that there aren't more Panthers guys on that roster. Chase Blackburn played with the team. But I'm just bummed that so many of the guys, some of the former players, Jericho Cotchery, Travell Wharton, all those guys are gone. What do you make of kind of the assistant coaches and the decisions that were made on the overall coaching staff?
Yeah, I mean, it's always tough. It's inevitable when you have a new ownership. They come in. Eventually you're going to, see a bunch of new faces. They're going to bring in their guys. They're going to run their business their way. And part of that is bringing people that you're comfortable with, that you believe in. And some of that is just not having a relationship with some of those Panthers greats. And you move on. So, yeah, those guys I played with, Travell Wharton, Everett Brown was another guy who played for the Panthers, was on that staff, a bunch of guys that are just gone now. Just going back and forth to the facility, I don't know anybody. I don't know anyone. The faces are different. Everything's different. But I think it's refreshing. I think it's time for a change. This team is going to reinvent itself. Great ownership. I believe in David Tepper. I know he has a plan. He didn't become who he is as a billionaire without having a great plan and taking some risk. And I think football is evolving right before my eyes. When I got into the league in 1997, the game was just different. And I think bringing in a guy like Matt Rule and that young coaching staff and new philosophies and the analytics is moving closer to the college game, and they're going to be able to connect with some of the young players on the team and some of the players they're going to bring in for the draft. So I think they're ahead of the game and kind of transitioning where the college game and the pro game is becoming, it's a lot of gray area. So they're doing a great job, and I'm excited to see what Rule can do because I know he's won, and I know he's done a great job at this collegiate level, but what I hear consistently is how great of a man he is and a great leader and how the guys really, love him. So I think if he can bring that same energy and make those same connections on the pro level, he's going to be successful whether they win or lose. And I think winning is in the cards. We all hope they win. But I think changing the lives of those young men in that locker room is where he's made a difference in the college game.
Oh, no, I love hearing that. And, yeah, I'm all in on Matt Rule. I'm really excited. I like the hire, and it's going to be fun to see how he puts his stamp on this team and the franchise moving forward. So I think overall it's going to be an exciting time for the Panthers. And anytime you've got a top 10 pick and a big choice there and future of the quarterback position, it provides a lot of intrigue for us as fans, that's for sure. But Al, man, love getting your insight on football and talking Panthers. But I also know that, after you retire from the NFL, you had to, pursue your own kind of business career. And I love hearing just about guys that when they transition out, they land on their feet well and they're able to find, that second career. And I know you've got kind of multiple things that you're juggling, but what can you share just as far as from a business standpoint, work standpoint, what keeps you busy and where your passion's at?
My passion, number one, is my family. I grew up in a broken home, and, both parents at some point in time were in and out and not, a part of your everyday life. So I have 5 kids, beautiful wife.
Wow.
My oldest is in college, and our baby just turned 1. Oh. So it's a big range there. 4 girls and 1 rambunctious 3-year-old boy. So they keep me young. They bring energy to the household. And, I get to fill a gap that wasn't there when I grew up. So for me, being dad and being present and being involved in their lives day to day is what motivates me and keeps me going. But as far as career-wise, I always knew that I wanted to transition, away from the game into corporate America, not necessarily entrepreneurship. For me, I wanted to be a part of a team. We talked about my career and my role as a backup. I was always comfortable with being really good at my role. So I transitioned into working for my father-in-law. After I retired, he owned an office supply company, one of the largest minority-owned office supply companies in the country. Today, my wife and I run a catering and event planning business. We do everything from weddings to parties to 9 to 5 day to day. We feed charter schools and underserved kids around the Charlotte area, the YMCA programs and things like that. So I love cooking. I share that with one of my daughters. She's a baker, so we cook all the time. It's what I love doing. So any day I could be in the kitchen and managing, deliveries, food deliveries, and in inventory, and then working with my wife, watching her and how creative she is and turning a blank space into somebody's dream, to somebody's thoughts that they have when they sit down with us and they say, we want an event. This is how we want it to look. It's in their head, and for her to turn it, for it to materialize. It's just been a great thing. She gets to tell me what to do way more often than I want, but it's great that we can share a similar passion, work together, come home, parent 5 beautiful kids, and have it all work out. So it's going well. It keeps me busy. I'm always on the move. I do a bunch of other Charlotte media stuff around town, especially during football season. So I'm a man that rarely sits down, but I think that means you're doing something right, and it definitely gives my kids a role model to look to about hard work and realizing dreams and doing what it takes to provide and take care of their family.
Wow, that's cool, man. So what's the name of the event and catering company?
Yeah, the food service business is called Food Co Services. We're a food service management provider, and then my wife, her side of the business is called Done in a Day Mom. So it's things that she dreamed up, that she creates, and she does it all in a day because she's a stay-at-home mom. But she has this event planning business where she creates dreams out of, just thoughts that people have of how they want events and parties and Weddings to Look. So those two businesses, we work together to provide food services and event planning for people out here in the Charlotte area.
Wow. Well, that's really neat, man. How did you get into that? Was that more her and then she brought you in, or what was the story there?
Yeah, like I said, I've always had a passion for cooking. I have 4 girls and 1 boy, but I grew up with 4 sisters and the only boy. So I watched the girls and
wow.
Tugged on my grandmother's apron and watched her cook. My family originally is Bahamian. We're from the Bahamas, so just Caribbean cooking, the love and how meals bring family and friends together is something I always had a passion for. We love entertaining at our own home, and I love to cook. So I can just turn the TV on, get in the kitchen, and get a recipe or come up with something on my own. And I just love to cook, not necessarily eat it all, but the creation of a meal is just something that I've always loved since I was a kid. I actually, before I realized I could go to college and play football, and I got a scholarship to the University of Maryland, wanted to go to culinary school. So I get to live that dream through one of my nieces. My oldest sister, as her oldest daughter, graduated from Johnson & Wales down in Miami, and watch her pursue her career in the culinary arts. So I just love cooking. My wife loves creating. We put those things together, and her family is, it's a bunch of entrepreneurs, and, her dad is like, hey, why don't you guys put these together and create something for your own? It's a passion. You'll never get bored. You'll never, feel like you're working for somebody else, that kind of dread you have on Monday mornings. We absolutely love waking up, and for me, feeding kids all across Charlotte, because I was one of those hungry kids who needed some assistance, needed that food to be provided because we just didn't have the money. So that's part of what we do, and part of me, my wife and I, giving back to the community here in Charlotte.
Man, I love hearing that. I didn't know about all that. So that's really cool. And just the fact you get to do it with your wife, the fact that you've had that passion since you were a kid, really neat to see how that all of that came together. So that's a really neat thing to hear. Well, Al, man, love talking faith, of course, here on Unpacking It, and so we talked a year ago and heard about your testimony and that sort of thing. But as you kind of reflect back on even the last year or even recently, maybe what ways has your faith grown or has your faith been challenged in the last year?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'll just start here with being challenged. I think we talked about, starting new business, juggling a kid in college, and throughout this past year, really a newborn, an infant, a 1-year-old. So that's a lot of responsibilities and just family. And sometimes you fight yourself as far as am I doing the right thing? Am I giving enough time and attention to everyone? But for me, I just, you hear that voice. You hear that voice that's kind of always been there for me growing up in a drug-riddled environment and violence down in South Florida. And I was always able to hear this voice that kept me on track. We talk about football. Football was in and out of the league, and keeping that faith, keeping that hope, hearing that voice saying you're doing the right thing, keep moving forward, keep pursuing your dreams. And for me, I just, sometimes at some point in my life, I didn't know what to call it, but it's the voice of God just keeping you focused, laser focused on what needs to be done. And for me, the challenges that come with everyday life, I continue to hear that voice loud and clear, and I know where it's coming from, and that just gives me a sense of calm, gives me a sense of direction, and it just never allows me to waver. My kids, I know God is real because of how I grew up and who I am today, and I think, when I met my wife and took her home for the first time, she had no idea, that life. She grew up in a completely different life. So you just look at your kids and you see the joy, you see love, you see that unconditional love they have for you, and for me, those challenges just melt away. And the favor God has had on my life and bringing me to who I am now, nearly 46 years old, and every obstacle that I've challenged, I've realized, and I've heard that voice knowing that I was going to come out of it. No matter how deep that hole got, there was always some light. So that's kind of how I approach life. I don't welcome those challenges, but I know I am very faithful that if I am faithful and I listen and I obey the things that I know are right, and the words that I've read that are right, that I'll come out of the other side, and that's how I live my life day to day.
Oh man, that's phenomenal, and to think, or be reminded, I guess, that voice is there for us to lead us and guide us, and we're not alone. God wants to walk this journey with us and point us in the right direction. And so, like you say, it just comes down to us obeying and resisting sometimes the pull in our own selfish desires and that kind of thing, but to really lean on God's voice, God's direction, his leadership, his guidance, and to be, in submission to him, surrendered to him. And it's amazing the journey that'll take us on. And like you say, it doesn't mean it's a void of challenges. Those are part of the path sometimes too, because it builds us and grows us. So, man, that's a good word and a good encouragement. So I appreciate that, Al. Well, I guess final thought. So I've got a 6-month-old. So you've got a 1-year-old. How has life changed with the latest addition to the Wallace family?
Well, I mean, it's beautiful. She's a baby girl, and knowing that this is our last is just watching her grow. I think we've just learned to take in every single moment even more, watching her smile, watching her light up when she sees our faces. She started walking at about 11 months. So all those transitions, solid foods, you soak it all in because you realize that you won't be here again with a year-old, and then she'll be 18 months old, and then she'll be 2. So we're just really enjoying the process even more. So I think when you have so many moving parts in a home, you have so many kids, you kind of, you put your nose down and you knock out the task and the chores, and you never really savor the process. And for us, I think the journey has been that much more gratifying because we know it's the last, and you relish all those moments, and you look forward to the next phase. And now chasing around the 1-year-old who you wanted to get up, and you're trying to make her walk between you and stand up, and now she won't sit down, and you're chasing her around. So it's been fun. We added a puppy for Christmas. That's even more drama. So we have a 2-month-old black lab puppy, and it is just great. It's chaotic, and it's filled with love and a bunch of laughter. There are tears along the way, but it's family. It's something that I did not have, and I just know how blessed I am to be able to share my life, my journey, be able to grow into the man I am today because of that faithfulness, because I listen. And you mentioned being alone, and I remember that struck something in me because I remember being young and being alone. And the thing that, I held on to was that hope and that voice I always talk about. I still at 45 don't know. I think I know who it is, and you think, you can describe it, but that takes you out of some dark places. It did for me, being alone and feeling alone and isolated in the situation I grew up in. And I'm not alone. We talked about everything that's going on in the house. And I can still have a peaceful moment if I'm up early, 4 a.m, and just having some peaceful time before everyone gets up. I still hear that voice. I still feel that calming presence. I still get those directions, and I know what I have to do each and every day. I don't take life for granted because I know it's so fragile. I know how different it could be. And I know it's people who love their lives, but I love my life, and I wake up knowing that I can make the most out of whatever situation comes my way.
Wow. How encouraging. I love it. And it is so true. My day is different when I really start before all the craziness and spend time with the Lord, listen to his voice. Sometimes it's just sitting there, being silent and allowing, him to speak to me before I'm telling him what I need or, hey, I need this and this. Come on, Lord. And just being restful and peaceful and just allowing God's presence to be known. And it's just awesome that it's available to us and what a blessing to know him. And so, and cool just to hear your appreciation for life and for, what God has blessed you with. I think so often we take things for granted. So it's a good reminder to just be appreciative, and things could be a lot different. So yeah, so good stuff, Al. Really appreciate you sharing all that, and love having you on the show today, and appreciate you taking some time. I know you're busy, so glad to catch up with you.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me on, and giving me the opportunity to kind of share my story a little bit. Hopefully it impact somebody out there. And so much going on in the world. We've seen so much tragedy. It was Kobe Bryant's passing, all these different things. People just have to love one another and slow down a little bit, and not focus on the challenges, but enjoy the moment and enjoy the process and enjoy the people around them. Because it could be gone tomorrow. Things change so quickly. You can't walk through life thinking you'll get to it tomorrow and putting things off. Tell the people around you love them. Give them a big hug. Appreciate those kids, the challenging moments and moments that just make you laugh. And I've just found joy out of everyday life, and that's what I hope for everyone out there.
I love it. Let's end it right there. Find joy in everyday life. Well, Al, thanks again. He's Al Wallace, joining us here on the Unpacking It podcast.
Intriguing guests and inspiring conversations. This is Unpacking It with Bryce Johnson.
Al Wallace. What a joy to have on the show. Just so humble, likable. Those are the kind of guys we love having on this show. Humility goes a long way for me. It really does. There's just a difference in people when you can sense humility. And those are the kind of people I like being around. And Al, you hear the story of, growing up, and we didn't go that in depth with it, but he appreciates where he's at now. And the fact that he took less money to stay with the Panthers and was good with the backup role, that he embraced that. Because so many times we see in sports the guy who has a great fit on a team gets a little greedy or thinks, I'm going to go be a star somewhere else, and he ends up going there, and you get lost. You end up not living up to your contract. You get released quickly. You fall out of the rotation. You're not a good fit in that other team, that other franchise. I mean, think about how many players leave New England, or I remember players that would leave Peyton Manning during the Colts years, and it's like, what are you doing? I remember there was a tight end for the Colts that left to go to the Detroit Lions. I forget who it was, but it's just like, what are you thinking? And then that guy was gone. Exactly, I forgot his name. But it takes, humility. Now, of course, there are certain guys where it makes sense to leave and you go get that opportunity, and depending on the point of your career, and I'm not saying it in a blanket way, but I think there's when you hear the stories of someone like Al who just embraced the team, the coaches, the players, the teammates, the chemistry. I want to be a part of something, and I'll be the third defensive end that rotates in and still get playing time, still make a difference. I posted in the Facebook group for Charlotte, and one of the guys, I loved Al as a player. Al had fans, and we still love him. We hear him on local media and all that kind of thing in Charlotte. So just a really neat guy, and I loved hearing about his food, love for food and cooking, and it's really cool. I enjoy cooking myself, but I haven't taken it to that next level yet. Thankfully, my wife is a wonderful cook, and so she does a lot of the cooking based on schedule and all that kind of thing. But, man, there is something fun about being in the kitchen, and I like to create, and so I don't like to follow directions, so it doesn't always end well. But I like to just throw some stuff in and figure out something that tastes good. But my role in the kitchen, I'm the seasons guy, the seasoning guy. And so I like adding the garlic and 21 seasonings from, this is a free plug, to Trader Joe's. Delicious. You basically put that on anything. So yeah, I could talk food all day, but anyway, great stuff from Al. I think the big takeaway, joy, humility, and really that time in the morning to get our hearts right and to figure out, okay, whose voice am I going to listen to today? Am I going to follow Jesus today? Am I going to follow my own way? Am I going to listen to the voices of doubt and fear and worry and you're not good enough? And I was battling some of that today. Had a tough meeting and didn't go how I had hoped. And then you start thinking, I'm no good. I can't do this. I can't do that. And you got to fight against that. And so then I ended up hearing an encouraging song on the radio. But we've got to listen to God's voice. He's speaking to us. And whether it's audible or not audible, I think we get caught up in what is God's voice? You just know. And Al knew. And so, even at young age where you don't even know necessarily who God is, you start feeling him wooing you and pulling you in and letting you know, I am real. I'm here for you. I love you. And so he's making a way for us to know him. And then when we finally realize and surrender and submit and say, all right, Lord, I'm yours, and I want to know you and follow you. And then each day we have that ability to follow his word, follow his plan. And when we find ourselves in those situations where it's like, all right, what decision do I make? God's doesn't want to just leave us stranded to where we don't know what to do. He wants to give us that guidance and direction. And so we sometimes have to get into his word. He speaks through his word. Sometimes he speaks through a song. Like I heard a song today, and it just impacted me. And that's happened to me countless times. And whether it's a sermon that I listen to or a devotional, and a lot of different ways God speaks to us, and you just know that voice. And so good stuff from Al, and just appreciate him being a part of the show today. And man, so many more thoughts I have on the Panthers that we'll get to in the coming weeks as well. I still think the Panthers move on from Cam despite the latest news. So I'm going to stick with that take. That's my hot take. Even though Ian Rappaport wants to report today that the Cam's going to come back as the starter, I just don't. It just doesn't seem to fit the overall plan. I think the Panthers have to go another direction. Like Al was saying, it doesn't make sense for Cam. And I don't think it makes a ton of sense for the team. I mean, I guess he's got one more year on his deal, and he gets a chance to prove himself. And I don't know. I think if he plays, then the team's probably closer to 500. Is that part of the rebuilding process, or do you want another top 10 pick next year? So you only want to win 4 or 5 games. It's a tough situation. So anyway, we could go down that path. We'll save it for another podcast in the coming weeks. And so thanks for listening today. I'm Bryce Johnson. I'm a sports fan who follows Jesus. I believe in the good news that he died on the cross for my sins. He was resurrected, and through faith, I have been saved by his grace. I hope that is true for you as well, and I hope you'll join us as we live life as sports fans together. We're excited. Ton going on here at Unpacking It. Check out our website, unpackingit.com. We've got March Madness viewing party, Masters viewing party, trivia night, man up, golf tournament, flag football tournament. So much to get plugged into. Figure it out. Unpackingit.com. Register, sign up, and get plugged in. Have a wonderful rest of your day. We'll talk to you next time right here on the Unpacking It podcast.
For more information about the show, our events, and other resources, visit unpackingit.com. That's unpackingit.com. We hope you are encouraged, inspired, and challenged by what you heard today. To support our show and Unpacking It Ministries with a financial gift, visit unpackingit.com/donate. We look forward to unpacking sports, faith, and life with you again next week.